We are live in Washington with the urgent meeting held overnight.
And the 5-month-old internet sensation that will make your morning. Fox and Friends First starts right now.
Good morning to you. You are watching Fox and Friends First on this Tuesday morning. Always appreciate you joining us right here. I'm Heather Childers. Nice to have you with us again as well.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Clayton Morris. Thanks for starting your day with us. We want to get right to this. A security officer now on paid leave over this horrifying video that everyone's talking about.
Yeah, it shows a passenger forcibly dragged off an overbooked United Airlines flight, left bloodied and bruised. Well, it is the United CEO's response, though, that is sparking even more outrage this morning.
Yeah, Kelly Wright here now with brand new backlash from that CEO. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning to you as well. For one traveler, flying the friendly skies of United, just as you've seen, became anything but friendly. And for United, it has become a public relations nightmare, sparking outrage on social media. It all started when a passenger refused to voluntarily surrender his seat on an overbooked flight.
Just kill me, just kill me.
Cell phone video capturing a passenger being forcibly removed from Flight 3411. 3 Chicago aviation officers ripped the man from his seat, the man hitting his head and bleeding as they dragged him off the plane. Passengers watching it all in disbelief.
That part was really unbelievable for us on the plane. It was wild enough that they pulled this man off. You know, he was unconscious when they pulled him off the plane.
Ticket agents first asked for volunteers to give up their seat for employees. When no one volunteered, 4 passengers were randomly selected. 3 left, but 1 refused, saying he was a doctor that needed to see his patients.
The gate agent went to the man in the video and told him he had to get off the plane, at which time he said he was a doctor, he had patients he had to see in the morning, he wasn't going to get off the plane. And the gate agent was like, you have to get off the plane. If you don't get off, I'm calling security. And he was like, fine, call security. I'm not getting off the plane.
So United Airlines CEO Oscar Munoz apologizing for overbooking, but is defending his employees for their response, stating this, especially with respect to why this customer defied Chicago aviation security officers the way he did. Well, United, the same airline sparking the leggings fiasco, and now this latest incident that now has some travelers calling for a boycott. Back to you.
Really troubling to watch.
Everyone's talking about it, and people are saying, I'm not flying United anymore. And we want to know from you this morning, the disturbing incident, thanks, Kelly, sparking debate over passenger rights. So when you buy a plane ticket, you're agreeing to the company's rules. That's called a contract carriage, allowing the airline to bump you off an overbooked flight. But industry experts say this time United went way too far.
Most people don't realize that when you get on an airplane, you give up many of your constitutional rights. You have to obey the requests of the flight crew, and then you can file your complaints and your claims after the fact. However, here it was so extreme, and whether excessive force was used by the police, I don't make a judge of that, but this is way beyond anything that should happen.
Passengers are due compensation if bumped from an airplane. The Department of Transportation is now investigating it.
Well, one Star Trek actor says he knows the reason behind the United outburst.
You have to do this now. I told the captain the shuttle wasn't built for this kind of heat.
Actor John Cho tweeting, it's hard not to see a connection between the environment Trump has created and what happened on that United flight. And Twitter reacted big time. One user responding, it's hard not to see a connection between your tweet and the internet mocking you. And then another saying, did you warm up before you made that stretch? And then another replying sarcastically, again, yes, before Trump, everyone was totally thrilled with the services that airlines provided.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
It's a good response.
Well, Well, now to a Fox News alert. More officers joining the nationwide hunt for the self-proclaimed revolutionary who sent a violent 161-page manifesto to President Trump. Police in Wisconsin releasing brand new pictures showing Joseph Jakubowski's tattoos, hoping it'll help him track down authorities, fearing he's a ticking time bomb armed with high-powered weapons.
Anybody that got this letter, you might want to read it. There it is. You see it's getting shipped. Revolution. It's time for change.
Jakubowski's stepdad believes he is on a do-or-die mission.
Well, a typical Monday morning turning into a horrific ordeal as a tragic murder-suicide unfolds inside an elementary school classroom, claiming the lives of a teacher and her 8-year-old special needs student. Well, some new questions this morning as to how exactly 53-year-old Cedric Anderson was able to walk into a full classroom with a fully loaded revolver, killing his wife, Karen Smith, before turning the gun on himself. A 9-year-old girl was also injured. Well, the images are haunting. Young students crying, holding hands. Look at that. As teachers rush them to safe zones, the school now shut down until Thursday.
I can't think right now. I'm sorry. I can't think right now. But other than that, that's all I know.
Have you been in contact at all with your child?
No, I have not. I haven't. I know. I called. I went to your door.
Well, police say that Anderson has a history of domestic violence. According to social media, the two were married in January, but they separated last month.
Question this morning. Who knew what and when? Brand new questions this morning about Russia's involvement in that Syrian chemical attack.
Now, all of this as Secretary of State Rex Tillerson prepares for a frosty reception in Moscow. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen is live in our nation's capital with more on that. Great to have you with us this morning, James.
Thank you, Heather and Clayton. Great to be with you. Pool reports out of Italy are saying that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is running behind on his schedule of events in Lucca, Italy, site of the G7 summit of industrialized nations that he is attending en route to Moscow later today. Earlier, while visiting Sant'Anna di Stasima, a Tuscan village that witnessed Nazi atrocities, Tillerson laid a wreath and evoked the recent Syrian chemical attacks by promising that America would hold to account any and all who commit crimes against the innocents anywhere in the world. Tillerson's aides at the State Department canceled their press briefing yesterday, the first scheduled since March 23rd. But White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer previewed the agenda that Tillerson will pursue at the Kremlin.
There's a lot of things to obviously discuss. The overall fight on ISIS, but I think with respect to Syria in particular, I think we need to remind them of the commitments that they've made and the commitments that Syria's made.
President Trump's launching of an airstrike on a Syrian airbase last week has brought condemnation from Russia, which called the attack on its client state a violation of international law. At various points, the president himself, however, has held out the possibility that his relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin might not prove more congenial than those of other recent U.S. presidents.
I would love to be able to get along with Russia. Now, you've had a lot of presidents that haven't taken that tack. Look where we are now. Look where we are now. So, if I can. Now, I love to negotiate things. I do it really well and all that stuff. But it's possible I won't be able to get along with Putin. Maybe it is.
Now, it was the Associated Press that reported yesterday that the U.S. intelligence community has reached a preliminary conclusion that the Russians did have foreknowledge of that Syrian chemical attack. However, a senior Trump administration official tells Fox News that there is no such consensus in the U.S. intelligence community as of yet. Heather and Clayton.
All right, James Rosen live for us this morning. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Well, President Trump, meantime, is being praised for the show of strength against Syria following that chemical weapons attack.
So what message does it send? Syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer says other nations are now on notice.
This is not going to alter the course of the war in Syria, but it was a message to Russia, a message to China, and most importantly to North Korea, that the days of walking all over the U.S. and 8 years under Obama, knowing that the U.S. will do nothing, those days are over. We are going to respond, and when we do, it'll be decisive and it'll be quick. The days of hand-wringing and the days of assuming the U.S. will do nothing, no matter how much it's provoked in the Middle East, are over.
Well, North Korea now sending a message of its own that it's ready to react to any mode of war desired by the United States, with at least one of our warships heading there from the Pacific.
Well, Alabama Governor Robert Bentley resigning over a sex scandal, accused of using more than $36,000 taxpayer dollars to cover up an affair with a top aide. Impeachment hearings beginning on Monday, but Bentley stepped down and accepted a plea deal. The 74-year-old grandfather of 6 slapped with a 30-day suspended jail sentence, 30 days probation, and community service. He must pay back the misused campaign funds. Lieutenant Governor Kay Ellen Ivey sworn in.
Well, the Supreme Court bench is full once again. Neil Gorsuch officially sworn in as the newest justice.
So help me God. So help me God. Congratulations.
Justice Anthony Kennedy, his former boss, administering the oath in the Rose Garden. Justice Gorsuch will hear several high-profile cases, the most notable coming up next week involving a Missouri church suing after being denied funding for a school playground.
Well, it may be spring, but it feels a whole lot like summer for much of the East Coast.
Yeah, looks like we skipped spring. Meteorologist Adam Klotz is here with the forecast this morning. Good morning, Adam.
Hey, good morning. I am loving these warm temperatures we're experiencing up and down the East Coast this morning. So warm on the walk to work. Look at that, 63 degrees currently in New York City, and you're experiencing it all the way to the center of the country. Now, you do notice that cold front right along that frontal boundary, and you typically see this in the spring. That is where we're seeing some storms firing up here really throughout late yesterday, all the way through the overnight hours. That's continuing here early this morning. So we continue to see some storms running through down portions of Texas from Austin, stretching you all the way up into the Ohio area, running up to Cleveland at this point. Those are going to continue to move along, slowly shifting off towards the east. This isn't going to be real big weather, but there's at least a small chance where we see maybe some more severe weather before we eventually wrap up this day. But this is not a real big system. It's going to continue to slowly move off towards the east before kind of falling apart. There's a little bit more rain out on the west coast. That just continues to make up for that drought they were experiencing. But it's all about the heat. Look at some of those numbers today, running back up into the 80s along the East Coast. Definitely feeling like summer, guys.
Perfect.
Yep. Ready for it.
Thank you.
Me too.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks. Well, the time now is 11 minutes after the top of the hour, and fear takes flight. Carnival crowds captivated when a harness breaks, leaving a woman dangling dangerously by her boots. Wait until you see what happens next.
And Chick-fil-A accused of threatening safe spaces. The students trying to get the fast food joint kicked off campus.
And swimming in the clouds, the high-concept pool design sure to make you think twice before diving in. What is
thank you.
that?
Are you out of your mind?
And welcome back to Fox and Friends First. More than $500 billion in accounting errors exposed at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and all of it happening under the Obama administration. An Inspector General's report slamming former HUD Secretary Julian Castro and other top-level officials for, quote, downplaying the severity and impact of the errors made during the 2015 and 2016 fiscal years. The department says that they've revised all the statements in question. Well, a VA whistleblower says that he's received death threats and is now at risk of losing his job. This after exposing a still unsolved problem of deadly wait times at the notorious Phoenix facility. And now he's naming another employee accused of harassing him.
I was not scared because I'm a combat veteran. I'm doing this for my fellow veterans. The killing of vets through denial of care is wrong, and I'm going to make sure that somebody knows that this is going on.
Well, according to the VA, the whistleblower violated a privacy policy, but he's fighting back, saying that their government employees and their names should not be a secret.
Question for you this morning. Do chicken biscuits scare you? Well, some college students don't want Chick-fil-A on their campus over fears that it could jeopardize their safe space. Students at Duquesne's University Gay Straight Alliance in Pittsburgh say it's because Chick-fil-A's owner opposes same-sex marriage. The school plans to open one on campus in the fall. Duquesne University officials say they chose Chick-fil-A because of student demand. And Oregon lawmakers are getting paranoid. The federal government approving a bill to shield the personal information of pot users. Recreational marijuana use is legal in the state, and now weed shops would have 30 days to destroy customers' records, banned from keeping any more data. It's already illegal to keep client information in Alaska, Colorado, and Washington state.
Well, a major decision about allowing phone calls in flight. I did not think this was a good idea.
Yeah, you don't want a chatty Kathy next to you. Or a chatty Bill. Lauren Simonet from our sister network, Fox Business, here with the FCC's new plans. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning. Quiet in the skies. The Federal Communications Commission making a move to ban airline passengers from making phone calls mid-air. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai says taking the ban off the table permanently will be a victory for Americans across the country who, like me, value a moment of quiet at 30,000 feet. Well, a few years ago, the Commission thought allowing chatty Cathys on flights was a sign of the times, but many passengers weren't as enthusiastic about talking on cell phones. Well, there's a top airline. Alaska Airlines ranked #1 in a new report based on items including more on-time arrivals, fewer lost bags, and fewer passenger complaints. Alaska beat out Delta and Virgin America, which it's actually in the early stages of acquiring. JetBlue and Hawaiian Airlines round out the top 5. And how about a popcorn and cheeseburger? The next time you go to the movies, AMC, the movie theater chain, trying to get more people to buy theater tickets by offering them food. 400 of its theaters this summer will have a new menu called Feature Fare, where patrons can buy items like cheeseburger sliders and curly fries at the counter before taking their seats. It's all an attempt to drum up sales without raising ticket prices. No word on how expensive the food will be. Back to you.
Yeah, a box of curly fries, $85.
I'm betting pretty expensive.
So the ticket will be still 10.
Yeah.
Curly fries, $100. All right, coming up, it's 19 minutes after the hour. Marvel pulling comic books off the shelves. A message hidden inside that's creating some controversy.
And Jesse Waters asked the American people about airstrikes in Syria. Problem is, they can't even find it on a map.
Where is Syria?
Oh, God, on the map?
You're not wrong. Do you know where Syria is?
In Europe or Africa? Northeast?
Like New England?
And welcome back. Feels like Florida this morning here in New York. Welcome back. The president getting praise on both sides of the aisle over those Syrian airstrikes. But do the American people really know what's going on?
Yeah, Jesse Waters hit the streets of New York City to find out.
What's happening right now in Syria?
I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
I don't know what's going on in Syria.
To the gas attack.
I know the chemical weapon that happened over there in Syria. It was Trump that committed it.
Where'd you hear that?
On Facebook. Right.
Why is Trump bombing Syria?
To let him know he's the man.
He prefers white people.
Oh, God, on the map?
You're not wrong. Do you know where Syria is?
In Europe or Africa? Northeast?
Like New England?
I respect what Donald Trump did.
I'm Waters, and this is my world.
It's my world, too.
Tell me about it, sweetheart.
Always in. fake abs in this latest music video. The internet not buying it, though. Some Twitter users pointing out that he's only fit in some of the shots, with his stomach sticking out in others. Other people comparing his abs to King's Hawaiian bread rolls.
I could use those.
A little painted on there.
Fake abs. I could use that. And a Reno teen on his way to a Twitter record. They said in 5 days, Carter reached more than 2.4 million retweets. He's still 16 million tweets away from the Nuggets, but is about 1 million clicks away from dethroning Ellen's Oscar night selfie as the most retweeted post of all time.
I didn't know that was the most retweeted post. And there's this. Did you see this little baby throwing arms up in the air like you just don't care? So cute. Now, the 5-month-old baby throwing up his arms. You can see that as soon as his swaddle comes off. His dad prepared all these clips along with some, popular music. And then, of course, it became internet gold.
See, this is adorable, but if it happens at 2 in the morning when you get punched in the side, it's not so adorable.
Aww.
Yeah.
A little smile.
Time is now 26 minutes after the hour, and President Trump is on a time crunch with some major hurdles in the way, including a looming government shutdown. So can he get his wall funded in time? We're breaking down the president's deadlines to get his agenda done. It's like 62 degrees in New York City. Beautiful spring morning. Good morning, everyone. You're watching Fox and Friends First. I'm Clayton Morris.
Yeah, I realized yesterday afternoon my phone said it was 71 degrees.
And you thought it was broken.
Yeah, it was very warm.
Right.
Or we skipped a season. I'm Heather Childers. It's half past the top of the hour. Thank you for joining us as always. Well, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is where we begin, preparing for a cold welcome ahead of his critical trip to Moscow today.
This as new questions swirl about whether Russia knew Syria was going to launch that chemical attack. Were they given a heads up? Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen is live in D.C. James Rosen will be back with us in a second in Washington. We're having some technical difficulties as we look at that. The question this morning is to whether or not the Russians were given a heads up. And then the bigger question, did they notify the Syrians moving aircraft off of those airstrips? So we'll keep you updated on that story. Yeah. Plus this, Pope Francis is keeping his plans for a 2-day visit to Egypt following the deadly Palm Sunday attacks on Christians. He'll be speaking at a peace conference days after twin bombings killed more than 40 people who were celebrating the start of Holy Week. According to the Vatican, this trip is aimed to show solidarity with Christian minorities in Egypt. ISIS is claiming credit for both church explosions.
We now know the name of the soldier who gave his life in the fight against ISIS. Staff Sergeant Mark D'Alankar, a father of 5, killed over the weekend during a combat operation in Afghanistan. A true American hero, the 37-year-old Maryland native is a highly decorated soldier. His wife posting on Facebook, "I will forever miss your sense of humor. I miss you. This hurts so bad."
All right, now back to our top story this morning. All eyes on that Syrian chemical attack and the response from the United States. James Rosen live for us in Washington, D.C. We got the satellite up and running this morning. James, what can you tell us? Were the Russians given a heads up?
Yeah, and this meeting was planned before the chemical attack in Syria and the, the bombing by the United States.
Clayton and Heather, good morning to you. Russia was given about an hour's advance notice before those Tomahawk cruise missiles started flying. And all of this is coming into play today when we see this extraordinary visit to Moscow by our top diplomat as the longtime chairman of ExxonMobil. New Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is one of 2 Americans, the other being Henry Kissinger, who is believed to have spent the most face-to-face time with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Representing an energy behemoth naturally took Tillerson many times to Russia and expanding energy power across the last 2 decades. But despite Putin's having conferred on Tillerson the Russian Order of Friendship Medal, the Kremlin says there are no plans for the American Secretary of State to meet with anyone higher than his counterpart, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Tillerson will be arriving in Moscow fresh from the G7 ministerial in Lucca, Italy, where the diplomats from industrialized economies failed to reach consensus on additional sanctions following last week's chemical attack by Syria and the U.S. airstrike launched in response. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer outlined the basic message that Secretary Tillerson will be delivering at the Kremlin.
I think that we need to make sure